Welcome, wine lovers. Welcome to this new podcast episode of Winzer Talk. And I always wanted to do this introduction in English. This is the first podcast episode in English, and I think it's a really time now because we have a really special guest today. We have the inventor of the Coravin system, Greg. Hello, Greg.
Hello, Daniel. Thank you for shifting languages on my behalf. Sad that I've forgotten so much German.
But you have Austrian roots, right?
Yeah, my mother was born in Vienna, and my grandfather and his family, her father, came from Graz, from Steiermark.
That's perfect. So maybe you understand something in German, but you don't even speak it anymore, right?
I do. My mother usually yelled at me in German. I grew up here in the United States. I was born in New York City, and she shifted to English by then. And but anytime I did something wrong, she would yell at me in German.
Oh, so that means when I do something wrong today, you can yell to German to me. That's
yeah.
Greg, where are you located today?
So I moved to Boston about 20 years ago. So I'm in Boston, Massachusetts. I moved here because I actually work most of the time in medicine. And Boston is one of the big medical cities of the United States. So I've been inventing medical devices since I was, I think, 21 and in college. And so I founded a few medical companies and actually spend half of my time working on Coravin and half of my time working on medicine still.
Wow. So that was actually also my first question. What did you do before you invented Coravin?
I've always been interested in working on things that would positively influence people's lives. And the first thing that I worked on was power and energy. I was a physicist, and I tried to work on fusion power the same way the sun makes power. But it was not yet ready, and it was always 20 years away. It's still 20 years away. So I decided that I would leave that field, and I went into medical research. And so I've been coming up with new medical therapies in different fields of medicine since I was in graduate school here in Boston. And I've worked in chemotherapy delivery, I've worked in gynecology, I've worked in vascular surgery and in general surgery and orthopedic surgery, and now and cardiac as well. But now I'm working in spine surgery. So
spine surgery, wow.
Spine surgery, yeah, Wirbelsäule, as I recall.
Wow.
And I'm working on patients who suffer from disc hernia in the lower back, and trying to come up with new therapies that improve their outcome.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Oh, it's been a great career. I've loved it, and I think doctors that I work with love wine, and actually were some of the people who introduced me to some of the great wines of the world as I traveled the world doing clinical trials. It was actually part of the reason I invented Coravin, is I had so many bottles that had been given to me from surgeons around the world that were all too good to drink. And I wanted to drink them. I wanted to see what they were like without having to commit to the whole bottle.
Yes, that's the point, right? If you...
Yes. Freedom. It was strange to me that we had to drink wine in the volume that it was sold to us. They sell it to you in 750 milliliter bottles. And sometimes a whole 750 makes sense when friends are over, or when your spouse likes the same wine. But there were all these times when it didn't make sense, when I just wanted one glass of wine on a Tuesday, or if I wanted a glass of white and a glass of red and a dessert wine, I'd have to open 3 bottles just to have 3 glasses. And if I didn't finish those bottles, they would oxidize and go bad. So I was frustrated, and as an inventor, I had to come up with something, even just to solve my own problem.
Wow, I know exactly what you mean. I mean, even me as a wine blogger, I get so many wines to taste them and to review them. And many of them are really, really good bottles, like Große Gewächs in Germany, and everything, you know, like $30 a bottle. And I just want to have a sip, and then I say, okay, actually, it's too young now. It's too young to drink it now. I want to put it back in my cellar to give the wine the time that it needs. And that was actually also my problem.
Yeah, you know, that was one that I uncovered as well. I love great Riesling, and a friend of mine makes some great Austrian Riesling, Brundelmeier.
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
really fantastic. Andreas Vickhoff, he's a fantastic guy.
I know him. He is really nice. Yes, I know.
Isn't he wonderful? Right? Is there a better person to be running a winery? So
he's master of wine also, I think.
Yeah. And you know, his 2019s I hear are fantastic, and I can't wait to get them. And I will taste them as soon as they arrive. And I know that they're going to be too young, but I want to try them now and put them back, and then try them again in a year, and then put it back, and then try it again in another year. I wanted to watch wines evolve over time. You know, when people tell you it's too young to drink, when I was young, I didn't know what that meant. You know, what is it like now? What will it be like later? And I wasn't learning because I was always worried that it was too young, and without really knowing what that meant. I wanted to be able to try it when it was too young, and try it when it got older, and see what those differences were. There's so much to learn in wine. There's so many different wines, and so much time in bottle that changes them, that I wanted to experience all of that.
Yes. If you want to learn something about wine, you have to drink wine, and don't wait for the wine until, I don't know, 5 or 10 years.
Yeah, or you buy enough wine where you forget you have some of the bottles.
Yeah, exactly. Like I just remember my uncle actually is a big wine enthusiast, and he infected me with this passion of drinking wine. And he has all this good Bordeaux and all these French wines at home, which are really expensive. And he always says, Daniel, once we gotta taste those wines. And I said, hey, my dear uncle, I have Coravin now, so we can try it earlier.
How about now?
Yes. So
it's a wonderful thing to have someone who brings you into wine. And I think, you know, most wine lovers have somebody they remember that introduced them to something spectacular. My grandfather-in-law, I'm looking at his picture now, he's passed away, but he had a wonderful cellar underground in Cleveland, in Ohio. And it was full of wines that he purchased in the 1960s.
Wow.
And I remember him saying, you know, when I bought these wines, they were inexpensive, but now they're very valuable. So I never drink them. He was one of the first people I gave a prototype of Coravin, because, you know, I was thinking, you have 3,000 bottles of wine, they're all really good. You're in your late 80s. It's time to start drinking, right?
Yes.
But it was wonderful to have him report back to me, you know, by email, what he had Coravin that night and what he had tasted and how great it was. He introduced me to great French wines, and that changed everything for me.
Yes.
Got me to fall in love with it again. I'd grown up in California and loved California wine, but to taste the variety was something I was missing. And I also remember saying to him something stupid, that, like, I only drink red wine. And he brought out my first white Burgundy. And I was like, okay.
Now we're talking.
I'll switch. And also a drinker of Riesling. And so to explore these wines, especially when they're older, was an extraordinary experience.
Exactly. So now we know how you came up with this idea to invent Coravin, actually. So, but this was just an idea, right? It was something in your mind, in your head, a thought. And how did this thought become reality? How did it all start?
You know, it's when you have a frustration, what I found in invention is it's important to write down exactly what you're experiencing. And so in medicine, I always write down what I call a need statement. What is my problem? What am I trying to solve? I find that most good inventions come from a better understanding of the problem rather than a new technology. And so I started to write down things like a way to preserve an open bottle of wine, because that was my assumption. You open the bottle, you start to drink it. There's two ways oxygen gets into the wine and affects it. One is you pull the cork, and that allows a little bit of oxygen in. But then when you tip the bottle and pour, the wine that goes out is replaced by air, and that air mixes with the wine and starts the change in that wine. Some oxygen is good, but a lot of oxygen over a long period of time is bad, and the wine is no longer drinkable. So I thought, okay, a better way to preserve an open bottle of wine. And there are many ways of doing that already, vacuum and some of these other technologies. But that wouldn't allow me to do what I wanted to do, because they only preserve the wine for a few days, maybe. And what I wanted was potentially months or years. And so I remember writing, really what my problem is I want a way to drink the exact amount of wine I want from any bottle I own, whenever I want, without having to think about when I'm going to drink from it again. I wanted to be able to, I remember writing a way to teleport a glass of wine out of the bottle into my glass. And I was like, okay, I can't teleport, but in medicine, we go in and out of bottles all the time with needles. My father is a diabetic. He's a type 1 diabetic. So he has been injecting himself with insulin since he was 7 years old. And he goes in and out of the insulin bottle. And then I had worked with a chemotherapy system for people with cancer. And it was an implant underneath the skin that we would access with a needle over and over again to give the person chemotherapy over their course of treatment. And so I'd gotten really good at making needles that didn't do damage to things. And so I was like, okay, I remember holding a bottle in my hand in the kitchen and one of these needles, thinking there's got to be a way I could use this needle to get wine out of here. And so I tried to suck the wine out with a syringe, and it sucked right back in because it makes a vacuum. And so I thought, okay, I have to push the wine out of the bottle into my glass. And so I thought, well, maybe I can use the gas that winemakers use. So when winemakers bottle their wines, they frequently will fill the bottle first with an inert gas, a noble gas, like argon, or with an inert gas like nitrogen. And so I started to use different gases and different needles and different pressures to push a needle through the cork. You then tip the bottle sideways, you push a trigger, and that would push gas into the bottle, basically trying to inflate the bottle. And then that gas would push the wine out of the bottle into your glass without allowing any air in. And because I wound up using argon, argon is both inert, it has no smell, no taste, doesn't interact with wine. It would push the wine out of the bottle into your glass. And then when you remove the needle, the cork reseals because it's elastic, same way that it's sealing against the glass. It closes the hole that you go through. And I found that the wine would last for months, years. I started doing blind tastings in my home. So I invented this in December of 1998, so a long time ago. And I was using it to drink at home. You know, my wife wanted red and I wanted white. I'd pour her a glass of what she wanted and a glass of what I wanted. Friends would come over. They would say, what's open? I said, oh, you don't have to drink what's open, just whatever you want. Go into my cellar, grab a few bottles, and we'll taste them. Friends started to ask me for prototypes. You know, they were saying, hey, I want to drink like you do. So I have a machine shop in my basement, and I was machining prototypes of these Coravin. They were called Wine Mosquito at the time. My younger son older son named it Wine Mosquito when he was 3 years old, and it stuck. So people said, hey, can you give me a mosquito? And I was making them maybe one a month for friends, and then their friends saw it, and I was making 2 a month, and then 5 a month, and then 10 a month. So every weekend I was busy machining prototypes and making them better and better. So then, yeah, it grew naturally and became a company because I was making so many of them.
I really like this idea and how you realized it, because on the one hand, it sounds actually really easy, because it's not like rocket science to you know what you have to do, but it's actually brilliant to do it with this needle. And I really love the idea about that. This is the perfect link for your job right now. On the one hand, you have this you come from the medicine, and on the other hand, now you bring it into the wine world and you bring the needles into the wine world, and it really does the job. And especially with the argon gas capsules, it's super brilliant. You just watched your environment. Actually, you knew what you had to do, and you saw actually people are already doing it, but how can you do it with such a smart little gadget right now? I think the wine mosquito did not look like this, right? It looks not as elegant.
No, and you know, yeah, the first one looked like a weapon, and so, but and then it was similar. I went through 15 different prototypes while I was doing my testing at home. And everyone got easier to use. The first one, my friend said, "You need an octopus with a PhD." And he was right. And I made it easier and easier and easier for friends. And as they complained about something that broke, I would fix it. But in reality, you know, the only way you get a product like Coravin now is you have a great team of people. I think one of the things that I've learned is that success comes from working with really, really good people. And I've got an amazing development team and design team that, you know, is working through the pandemic and works really well. I was with them yesterday, right, socially distanced, working on new prototypes. And I think that what my job has become in the business is to come up with the basic idea, the unmet need and the approach, and they take it so much further. And I think that's one of the things that I've loved about working in wine is how passionate people are about wine, how much of a part of their quality of life wine is. When I founded Coravin, I was a little worried that I would miss the passion that I feel in medicine. In medicine, it's easy, you know, you're to feel passionate. You're working on somebody's health and you want to restore them to better health. And when you can do that, it feels great. It's a wonderful, wonderful feeling. But I have to say, in working in Coravin, I felt absolutely the same passion. There was a surgeon who said to me, "I understand your career. You work on medicine to keep us alive, and you work on wine to give us a reason to stay alive." and you know, wine is such a wonderful part of our lives, right? I mean, it's the most social beverage. It's a way that we relax and enjoy. I love that in the United States, wine sales during the pandemic have gone up by 20%. Because we're enjoying ourselves at home in the way that we still can, you know?
Absolutely. Greg, I have a question for you. Like, I was always wondering, what does actually Coravin mean? How did you come up with this name?
Yeah, Coravin. So I am an engineering and science geek, and I was the California Latin Club president at one point, and so I'm a big Latin fan, which makes my grandmother happy, who lives in Vienna. She speaks fluent Latin. I don't know why. But cor is the Latin root for heart. And
like corazon.
Yeah, corazon, exactly. And for me, getting at the heart of wine, not just in my medical work in cardiac, but the heart of wine for me is its variety. And to be able to explore that variety with freedom was what Coravin was. And so that's really what I was hoping for with the company, was to expose people around the world to the change in life that I had with drinking wine. That freedom to drink, a glass of wine, a glass of red, a dessert wine, a rosé, and to share your wines with friends when they come over and say, hey, I have this tradition in my house when a friend comes over, to go to my cellar and grab whatever bottle they want, or bottles, however many you like. And through Coravin, I've become friends with a rock musician, and he came over to my house, and he's 25, 26 years old, and he went downstairs and he came up with 9 bottles of wine. And then he went back downstairs and he came up with another 9, and then back downstairs, and then another 9. So in the end, he had 35 bottles of wine. He had Riesling from the Alsace, from Austria, from Germany, from Australia. He had Chardonnay from around the world. He had Cabernet from around the world. He had Syrah from around the world. And he had a notebook. And he said, let's taste through all of these and let me learn about all of these different regions and different wines. And we spent the next 4 hours tasting, and he was writing notes, and we were talking, and it's exposing someone to that kind of experience. We would never have opened 35 bottles for 2 people. And I took those bottles in the end, and we put them downstairs again, and they're still there,
Wow, I love it. Yes. So like, it's already changing the behavior, how people drink wine, right? So what do you think is the impact on the whole wine industry, actually?
It's amazing to me how far Coravin has spread. We're now in over 60 countries. We're used at home to drink the way that I do, which was the reason I invented it. But we're also used in restaurants around the world to serve great glasses of wine without the risk of waste. We are used by wineries to sample their wines to their customers. Burgundy, for example, most of the producers in Burgundy use Coravin. Napa Valley, the Rheingau, Spain, Australia, China, even they're growing great wines, Japan. So that is wonderful to see the winemakers using Coravin. And then the sales force of wineries to sell their wines to restaurants, and even some wine stores, Mövenpick, will use Coravin to sample you on wines. So it's been great to see that happen. I asked my team how many capsules have we sold, because each capsule pours between 15 and 20 full glasses of wine. And one of them looked at me and said, we've served over 150 million glasses of wine. 150 million. And so that's a number I keep track of now. It's not the number of Coravin systems we've sold, but how many glasses of wine have we poured? How many moments have we touched through Coravin? It's an incredible thing to see how broadly it's spread. And I think it's the freedom by the glass. We buy it by the bottle, we drink it by the glass. That's what I was hoping for, and it's great to see it. And we're going to keep working until we make it easier, more efficient, faster, and work on every wine. In the beginning, Coravin only worked with cork, natural cork, and now it works with cork and screw cap. And then with Pivot, our new product, it works independent of the closure because we have our own stopper. And my dream now is to progress to sparkling wine and be able to serve any sparkling wine by the glass.
Yeah, that was also a question I actually just kept for the end of the episode with the sparkling wine. Maybe we just keep this in our mind. And I want to dive a little bit deeper into this topic, into this issue about the behavior of the wine industry and of the people, because I can imagine that there have been also a few critical voices, like winemakers, for example, who said like, we want our wines to be drunk and not to be preserved. What do you say about this?
You know, I think it's a reaction for sure, and it was a stronger reaction in the beginning. So we launched in the United States in 2013 and in Europe in 2014. Coravin is really a window on a culture and a mindset, and every country and every region in every country reacted differently. In Napa Valley, they were like, great, marvelous, new technology, right? They're right next to the high-tech industry, and so they look at Coravin and said, perfect, I'll use it. No resistance. Burgundy, they have such small production, and they had to open so many bottles to sample for critics that they were, or people that came by, that they were throwing away, in their mind, they were giving away a large enough percentage of what they should have been selling. So they loved Coravin from the beginning. Bordeaux was very resistant. They had that fear. You know, if people use Coravin, will I sell less wine? Because they will still have the old vintages in their house. And I think it took some really forward-thinking wineries, Chateau Margaux and Aubailly in Bordeaux, changed everything. Chateau Margaux was the first winery to start using Coravin to sample a wine before they sent it to an event. So they would, to make sure it wasn't a bad bottle, they would taste it first using Coravin and then send it, especially magnums. Aubailly started to use it to sample guests who came over to their vineyard house. They would walk in the door and have 5 or 6 great vintages of their wine on a cart, and they would just give someone a glass and say, which vintage do you want to try? and pour it for them. And I think once those two started to use it, slowly the other wineries began to change. Lynch-Bage came on very quickly thereafter. Some of the leading wineries, and I worked very hard to go to the wineries and show them Coravin before we launched in the country, to make sure they were aware of it, and to make them involved. Because in the end, we use our product on theirs. And so if they don't like it, it could destroy the company. And if they do like it, if they promote it, they can help accelerate. And so it was important to me that they know first. So always before we launched in the country, I went to the wineries.
Yeah, that's a really good approach, because in the end, the winemakers have such a big influence, right, to the customers.
Yeah, and to the restaurants who influence the customers, and to the wine stores who influence the customers. They're in a beautiful business. Many of the wineries being ancient family businesses in Germany and Austria, for example, in Italy, and they deserve respect for what they've achieved and for how many generations they've existed. And I wanted to involve them in the testing, in the development, and so we did blind tastings with winemakers with their wines out 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, 4 years now, you know, where they're blind tasting a bottle they've Coravin and kept versus a bottle from the same case. And if they can't tell the difference, they know it works. And I had an argument once at a winery, not a winery, but at a restaurant, where they were saying, you know, Coravin is terrible. It gets between the service of the customer and it's distracting. This was in Munich, actually.
Oh.
Tantris in Munich, great restaurant. And I flew to Tantris to meet the sommelier, and because if somebody doesn't like your product, it's good to understand why. And I met him over dinner as he was serving me, and then he invited me into his cellar, and we argued until 4 o'clock in the morning. And I remember we were sitting on the floor with too many open bottles around us. And his girlfriend looked at him and said, "It's a tool. You don't love a tool or hate a tool. You use a tool or you don't use a tool."
I love it.
And he looked at her and said, "You're right." And Tantris became one of the top Coravin restaurants in the world. They have a huge wine list by the glass.
Yeah, I love it. I really love it, because I do a lot of meditation and stuff like this, you know, and you always try to do not put any labels on stuff or say this is right, this is wrong, this is good, this is bad. I mean, but in the end, it's just a tool. You're right, and it's neither good or bad. It's just here to do something for you. You can use it. I really love it.
I want to thank her again for that, wherever she is.
That makes absolutely sense. So, I mean, I already showed my followers on Instagram, Coravin, stuff like this, and I got one question concerning the environmentally friendliness and if it's sustainable, because they said, oh, there are capsules. Is this really sustainable, or is it just a lot of waste that you produce? What you say about these questions?
It's really important to me. Many of the people who work at my company were part of the American coffee company Keurig, and also Nespresso. So we've worked with a lot of coffee people in our company, and they think a lot about the environmental impact of and the sustainability of what we do. And luckily, the company that I work with for the argon capsules is just outside of Vienna. I met the owner in a bar, very luckily. And so they also think about the environmental impact of what they do. They make capsules for us. They make capsules for Starbucks. 100 million capsules for Starbucks or more. So they made sure that their capsule is recyclable. So our argon gas capsules are valuable metal. And so it's worth checking with your local authorities, but Coravin capsules are recyclable in most places. It's valuable metal, steel that can be reused. So metal is one of the more easily and more valuable recyclable materials, like aluminum cans, for example, are very, very useful and very easy to recycle. So we are hopeful that everybody continues to recycle their capsules. In the communities where capsules are not recyclable for whatever reason, we are starting up this year a collection service that we're working on, because I don't want, we will use the metal, so I don't want to waste this useful product. It should never wind up going into a landfill. That metal is too useful. So, and then we are also working very hard on the recyclability of our packaging and minimizing our packaging, both for the capsules and for the system. So we've shrunk and shrunk and shrunk again our packaging, and you'll see our latest with Pivot, our newest product, has almost nothing.
I mean, this is the one thing, and the other thing is, I think, how many wines did you rescue actually from being oxidated, or just
It's a great point. I mean, what is the environmental impact of making a bottle of wine, drinking half of it, and throwing half of it away? You know, essentially you wasted half of that year's effort. Any of the energy used in the production of the wine and any of the energy used in the production of the bottle was half of it being thrown away. Makes no environmental sense. So I have not thought about it in that way, but it's we should, when we do our carbon footprint, we should find a way to measure that.
Yeah, you absolutely should. Yeah, I mean, you're rescuing Ryan. That's the thing I always think. If I would have not Coravin right now, I would not know what I could do with these wines now. I mean, I'm a wine taster. I taste all the wines, and when I get like 5 bottles of wine, I cannot drink them, not
Yeah.
even a week. It's
Yeah.
impossible. And I can share it as much as I want with my friends, with my neighbors, with everybody. They say, "Oh, okay, Daniel, after 4 years, it's okay. Keep your wine, keep it." And now my cellar is growing and growing and growing, and I really love it because I have the chance to watch the wines over time, and I'm really
Yeah.
grateful.
Yeah, to share them with friends, eventually family. Both my sons are now over 21, the drinking age in the US. And they both have their own small wine fridges now where they live. And every once in a while, I'll send them some extra bottles of wine for them to taste through. And they get to taste wines that are as old as they are, and really see what happens with time. Somebody told me that wine is experience in a bottle, and it's the experience of that vintage, but it's also the experience that you have when you drink it and you reconnect with that year. It's why we have birth year wines. And I love the idea of being able to take that experience from that bottle and have it with multiple people over a period of time to share it with them. There are all sorts of things you can do when you don't have to open the bottle to drink it.
This is actually a good point with the experience. I think you can only experience something in a wine that you experienced on your own, because you cannot experience the taste of, just for example, for an apple in a wine if you have never had an apple.
Yeah.
Like, this is like the bottle, the wine is actually a good reflection of yourself.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was if I could bore you with a quick story, I always do these blind tastings at home. And I've now blind tasted wines out to 14 years. So I had a control bottle and one bottle I had Coravin 14 years ago. But I remember one day going down just to grab a bottle to drink, and it was a bottle from an old test that I didn't care about anymore, an inexpensive Spanish wine. And I brought it upstairs, and I always write a note on the bottle and the day that I Coravined it. And I poured myself a glass and I was drinking it, and I looked at the bottle for my note, and it said, "This wine is terrible. Never drink again." I was tasting it, and I was thinking, actually, this isn't terrible. I like it. And I thought, well, maybe it's evolved over time and gotten better, or maybe Coravin changed it. And so I went downstairs to grab a control bottle, a bottle that had not been accessed, because I saw that I had 2 other bottles of the same wine. And I grabbed another bottle, and I had mistakenly Coravined a second one about a year later. And so I looked at the note on that one, and it said, "This wine is great, buy more." So I took that bottle and the one that said it was bad, and I took the control bottle, brought them all upstairs, tasted all 3, they were the same. And I think what was different was me.
Yes.
Right? It's who you bring to the wine is almost as important as what the wine brings to you. It was such a humbling experience.
I love it because we train our palate, right? We train our brain to get all these tasting notes and stuff like this. And maybe when we start our wine journey, we are not like well educated. We don't even appreciate the taste of, for example, a horse, or some notes from the farm, or even the cat pee from the blah, stuff like this. And over time we develop and we start to do not judge those tasting notes anymore. We just appreciate it for what it is, because it's typical for the region or for the grape variety. And when we try to to taste these wines years on later, then we maybe appreciate it and like it even. That's
it's also, sometimes you have a good day, and sometimes you have a bad day, right? And maybe you're angry or upset at something, or maybe you're happy about somebody's birthday, and that influence, and who you're with. You're with someone you love, you're with someone you're arguing with, you're with someone who's in business, it's your experiences that you bring to that bottle in the same way it brings itself to you. It's one of those beautiful parts of wine that your own mind can change the way you experience that taste and that smell.
Mm-hmm. Well, Craig, I really love our conversation, and I just recognized that I should speak more English, by the way, but I'm not able to travel anymore. So this is the problem.
Can't wait.
We just sit around here in Germany, you know, we cannot leave our homes and don't have the chance to interact actually, like with people from abroad. So this is really a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But, yeah. Let's go back to this beautiful gadget. Like there are different models right now. So I hold in my hand right now Model 2. That was my first model I ever had. And I don't know if it's right, but you can correct me. I think Model 3 is the successor of this one.
Yeah, so we can't count at Coravin, so the numbers are a little confusing. Model 2, we're no longer selling. It works great. We now have Model 3 and 6 for the home. When I founded the company, I said, we will always make Coravin faster, easier, and more fun. And so all the iterations, all the changes are to do that. So your Model 2 has a hand clamp where you clamp it actively to the bottle. And you then push the needle through, and then you pour, and then you pull the needle out, and then you take the clamp off. We wanted to make it simpler, so we developed something called smart clamps that automatically clamp to the bottle on their own. So you simply just take the Coravin in your hand, press the needle through the cork, tip it sideways and pour, and then pull it straight off. So it just became easier for our customers. So Model 3 is our least expensive model. It's our entry level, and it works just the same as everything else. I use it every day, but you have to like the color black because that is the color it comes in. And then we have Model 6, which comes in many different colors. People are very particular about colors in their home. You have the red Model 2. It's beautiful. I love that color in particular. I have a red Model 6 now that I love. Yeah, it's just the colors. And then we have a digital Coravin predominantly used by restaurants called Model 11. And it also uses the smart clamp, so you just push it on, and it automatically pours. You tip it, and it starts pouring itself. It meters out the inert gas to make sure you can set actually the pour speed on your phone, which equates to the volume you're pouring. So you can pour a taste, or you can pour a glass. You can determine the size of the taste in the glass independently. It's really fantastic for restaurants. And now we have launched Model 2, or sorry, the Pivot. Pivot is something I came up with a few years ago on a flight from Australia. I was sitting at a dinner, and a guest at the dinner said, you know, I love Coravin, but I don't save my wines for years or even months. I want something that I can use over the course of a few weeks, maybe. And that would be easier and faster. And I said, okay. And I remember sitting on the airplane and flying back and thinking about the problem of oxygen getting in and realizing that very little oxygen gets in when you open the bottle. The most oxygen gets in when you're pouring the bottle. And so I thought, well, what if we could open the bottle and then place our own stopper in the top that doesn't allow oxygen in, and then have a big tube that could go through a valve in this simple stopper. I could pour really quickly, and maybe the wine won't last for years, but if I use the right materials, I could get it to last for a month. And so came up with the idea of the Pivot, and it allowed us to reduce the cost, increase the ease of use. And so now it pours a glass in 3 or 4 seconds, and costs, you know, we got the cost down so that we could sell it below 100 euro. So it's our first, it allowed us to simplify a lot of things.
Yeah, it even comes with a button, right?
Yeah, you press a button to pour. I have to admit, we sold out very quickly.
Oh, wow.
As soon as we launched it, yeah. here in the United States, it's gone. And so we just got some more back in. Yeah.
Yeah, lucky for the listeners that they can win one Coravin Pivot today.
Oh, very cool. Very, very cool.
Yes, I gonna tell you later, guys, what you have to do to win this beautiful gadget. Sorry
Yeah,
for
I use it at
interrupting
home.
you. Yes.
I use it at home. I use it on the things that Coravin doesn't work on. We don't work with plastic cork with a needle. It's not elastic. And we also don't work with glass corks, Vinalock. There's a great producer named Heinrich in Austria, and he uses all glass corks. And he has been breaking needles because people don't know.
Really?
It's under the foil, and people.
That's hilarious. Yeah,
it's and I like his wine a lot, so now I use a pivot on his wines.
Well, I think I already bent this needle a little bit by trying it. My first mini steps to try it, but now I really do it like automatically. It's really easy to use actually when you understand the system. Yes.
Yeah, it takes a couple of tries, and I always say to people, buy an inexpensive wine and watch the video.
Absolutely. Yes, and we already touched like the issue of sparkling wines, and many followers asked me already on Instagram, when do they invent something for the sparkling wines?
Yeah, I'm not allowed to say officially, but Germany is the #1 consumer of sparkling wine, as you know, worldwide. Yeah. So Germany is a very important place for what would be a Coravin for sparkling wine. And I can't wait to travel to get there and to share it with the many great sparkling producers in Germany. I love sparkling wine. I'm trying to think of what I can say. I love sparkling wine. I have a wine fridge completely full of sparkling wine, and there are at least 2 bottles of each because of the experimentation and the way that you have to blind taste. My dream is to be able to have a glass of sparkling every day of the week, and have a different sparkling every day of the week, and then be able to have a glass of Riesling and then a glass of red wine. You know, I want to be able to have a wine program like a good restaurant in my house, and sparkling plays an important role there. And I would love to go to restaurants and not just order the one sparkling wine that they have opened, that they're willing to risk, that they're serving by the glass, but to experience 20 sparkling wines or 30 sparkling wines by the glass. So it's very important to me. And I am, in my testing, seeing better and better and better results. So sparkling wine is a very tricky, difficult thing to preserve perfectly, but I want the last glass to be the same as the first glass from a new bottle, whenever you want to drink it. So it's a big challenge, but I'm very confident now that Coravin is going to be able to do it. It would be a shame for me, in my view, to launch something like this before we can travel. I very, very much need to visit the sparkling winemakers and have them use something like that first, and believe in it before it's launched. And right now, I'm not allowed to leave my country.
What a shame. Please, let him free.
Oh, I miss Germany. I really do. I've done a lot of medical work there. And man, Hamburg is wonderful. Dusseldorf is wonderful. Munich is wonderful.
Yeah, don't forget Bavaria.
Yeah, Bavaria, Munich. I mean, my family is from Steiermark, so we're just across the border. I love the restaurants in Munich. I love everything but the weather in the winter.
Yeah, I even like the winter actually, because I do a lot of ice bathing, you know.
Oh yeah.
Yes, I love it. Like taking cold showers, and then I go into the ice sea or something like that, the ice lake.
Yeah. Wow.
Get some
Okay.
energy. I love it. Yes.
It's great. It's apparently it's good for your health.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes, it makes you stronger and even your mind.
Yeah. I have a couple of surgeons who do the same thing.
It's beautiful. It's also good for the heart, right?
Yeah. That's I think what it is blood flow. And it's good
Yeah,
for the
the
blood
blood
flow.
flow, the vascular system, everything.
Yeah. Yeah, wine is as well. I mean, I think that's one of the great blessings, right? That coffee, wine, these things we love wind up not being too bad for us.
Yes, I
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah.
All right, Greg. So I want to give the listeners now the chance to win one of those Coravin pivots, and I just want to explain it in German that there is no misunderstanding.
Bitte.
Danke. Okay, Leute, jetzt sprechen wir hier mal Deutsch. Ich hoffe, ich kann besser Deutsch als Englisch. Ich hoffe, ihr nehmt mir das Ganze nicht zu übel. Ihr habt jetzt auf jeden Fall die Chance, dieses Coravin Pivot zu gewinnen. Und alles, was ihr dafür tun müsst, ist auf euren Apple Podcast, also auf euren iTunes-Account zu geben und diesem Podcast eine 5-Sterne-Bewertung zu geben und einen Kommentar, wie euch diese Folge gefallen hat. Bitte vergesst nicht, euren Instagram-Account mit anzugeben oder eure E-Mail-Adresse, damit ich euch dann auch erreichen kann, um euch mitzuteilen, dass ihr gewonnen habt oder nicht. Und falls du kein Apple-Gerät hast und deswegen augenscheinlich nicht teilnehmen kannst, möchte ich dich bitten, einfach einen Screenshot von dieser Folge zu machen und das Ganze auf Instagram in deinen Stories zu teilen. Dann hast du ebenfalls die Möglichkeit, an diesem Gewinnspiel teilzunehmen. Craig, did you understand everything?
I did. I'm going to rush on to Apple and give you 5 stars and post your photograph in Instagram.
Then you're going to win your own wine system.
Exactly. No, I will not compete, but it's I love the language and I miss it. I would love to see my grandmother in Vienna and my uncles and my cousins.
You should listen to my podcast. I have some episodes with Südsteiermark winemakers, like Erwin Sabati, for example.
Yeah. I love Tennant. My goodness, their wines are fantastic. Longest blind tasting I did with winemakers was in Südsteiermark.
Oh, nice.
And I'm sorry, not in Südsteiermark. Yeah, in Südsteiermark. Back a couple of years ago, it was a 4-year blind tasting, and the Sauvignon Blanc from there is fantastic. It's some of the best in the world.
Absolutely, yes.
It's absolutely, and it's not sold in the United States much at all. People don't know it. I think Austria drinks most of it.
Yeah, their Sauvignon Blanc is so special. There's so much terroir driven, right?
Oh my God! Right on that hill that divides Slovenia from Austria.
Yes.
So beautiful.
This is really unique. It's a very magical place there.
Wine is made by good people in beautiful places.
And catched in a bottle.
Yeah, exactly. It's such a special thing. Your speaking German makes me miss my traveling.
I feel you. I
will
really
listen to your podcast. That'd be great.
That's really amazing. It's a big honor to me.
Yeah, it's really wonderful to meet you, and I will download. I will give you 5 stars, but I will not compete over Pivot.
Well, thank you so much, Greg. It was really nice to talk to you. Maybe you have some final last words for the listeners.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of my favorite lines about wine is that it's a grocery. And don't think of it like it's something so special it needs to be revered or praised in some particular way. The winemaker makes it so that you can drink it and eat. And I think when we all relax about wine, we can enjoy it more and go exploring. It's the only way we can travel now, is by tasting wines from other countries. So cheers to everybody, and we will get through this crazy time now and get back to sharing wonderful wines with each other, sitting across the table.
That's
I
beautiful.
can't wait.
Thank you, Greg.
Thank you, Daniel.
Have a good day.
Yeah, cheers.